I'm going to talk today about our company Dzurak and our vision for how quantum computing can really make a huge impact on the world, and in particular, as the title in the program suggests, move towards utility scale, the point where quantum computing is used ubiquitously in a cost-effective manner. I'll talk more about the definitions of utility scale for those who are less familiar in a moment. But let me just tell you a little bit about our company Dzurak for those of you who aren't familiar with it. We are born out of Australia, out of a university in Sydney, the University of New South Wales, where I've been a professor for many years. In fact, our university established an Australian special research centre in quantum computer technology as early as 2000, so been running for 26 years, and it really has been a powerhouse of concepts and of talent in quantum computing. Many great scientists and engineers here in the US and all around the world have often begun their careers in our university and in our partner universities in Australia. But around 10 years ago, my research team at the university, conceived of a way to use standard silicon chip manufacturing. You can see a picture there of a 300mm silicon wafer being held by one of our staff. We conceived of how to use standard chip making technology to make quantum processors, with all of the advantages that brings. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And so 3 years ago, with an initial Series A venture capital investment, launched the company, and over the past 3 years since founding, have raised around 60 million in venture capital, and that adds to nearly 100 million that had been sourced out of R&D funding from both Australian and US government investments. I should mention that our previous research team and now our company have long-standing links here to the US through both government labs here, but also through NSA's Laboratory for Physical Sciences and the Army Research Office, and more recently through DARPA's Quantum Benchmarking Initiative, which I'll talk about in a moment. Since launching as a company, we've quickly built a team up to 50 staff in Australia, but also here in the United States. We incorporated here in the US last year, and we have staff in Silicon Valley, in Boston, and we're building a laboratory in Chicago with support from the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park organisation that will be staffing early next year. Actually, two of our staff are sitting here. Boya Nato, our Vice President of Business Development based in the Valley. Andre Saraiva, Head of Theory for the company, also leads our DARPA program. And Andre's moving out to the US in a couple of months to Silicon Valley as well, which we really see as a core hub for the company. We have very strong IP position based on our R&D developments originally at the university, and that's allowed us to really demonstrate through scientific publications over the past decade many breakthroughs in the development of silicon-based quantum computing. So I mentioned DARPA, which is a very, very important partner for our company. So many of you, I'm sure, would be familiar with the Quantum Benchmarking Initiative. It began as a program around a year ago. Previously, DARPA had made a number of other investments related to quantum computing. The Quantum Benchmarking Initiative, though, is certainly the largest program that DARPA have embarked upon. And as noted on this slide, the aim of that program is very clearly stated: to determine whether it's possible for anyone to develop a quantum computer by 2033 that reaches what DARPA defines as utility scale. And they're very clear on what they mean by that. That is a quantum computer that actually generates more commercial revenue than it costs to operate. And when we learned of this program, so we are now part of this program. It's been an amazing program where DARPA has brought together a phenomenal team of US government scientists and engineers to do verification and validation of different companies' approaches, including ours at Dzurak, together with our partners worldwide. And the reason that we were so pleased about this program is that our silicon approach really is very much targeted at the concept of utility, at producing quantum computers that can really be cost effective, that can deliver commercial revenue, but at very, very low cost compared to other competing quantum computing technologies. And that's because of some unique aspects of this silicon approach, which I'll just spell out now. So most importantly, as many of you would know, the developments over quantum computing over the last decade have really been important. I mean, that's why we're here at this global congress, and as we've heard from great companies here in the US and around the world who are developing quantum computing technologies. But at the moment, although there's been great progress and people are already putting to work few qubit systems, smaller qubit systems of now up to 100 or maybe a couple of hundred qubits, that is still well below the level of qubits required to do what's called fault-tolerant quantum computing, where error correction is used in order to do genuinely commercial applications that you can't do on existing high-performance classical computing. It's commonly accepted that one is going to need millions of physical qubits and thousands of logical qubits, error-corrected logical qubits, in order to really reach those important applications in areas such as molecular design for pharmaceuticals or the chemical industry, for financial modelling, or obviously defence applications as well. So, but to get to millions of qubits, there's a couple of challenges. I mean, first of all, no matter what paradigm you're using, it's a significant engineering challenge to develop the overall computing systems for quantum error correction and so on. But in many approaches, the physical size of the quantum bits means that you actually have to create physically very large systems in order to reach that scale of millions. In the case of our silicon qubits, because our devices are just modified silicon MOSFET transistors of similar footprint to a standard transistor, we can actually get many millions, in fact even up to order 100 million, onto a single chip. And this is a huge advantage, not just because it means that it's small, but it means that we can use standard silicon integration technologies that are out there used in the standard semiconductor industry in order to integrate with the classical electronics. And this really is the core advantage of the silicon CMOS approach, is this ability to get very large numbers of qubits in a compact space in a way that can be integrated with the classical control electronics that are required to do the readout and control of the qubits. Another important aspect of the silicon approach is that silicon qubits, which are based on electron spin, can be very, very fast. Many of the technologies that are out there that have been showing some great demonstrations face challenges in terms of the operation times of those qubits, which means that even if you could build a system at the millions of qubit level, the time to perform the calculations means that you wouldn't be able to solve many of the commercially important problems on a time scale that would actually be commercially relevant. If it takes you, a few years to do a calculation, then obviously that starts to become really uncompetitive from a commercial perspective. Silicon qubits are fast, comparable, same sort of speeds as we see, for example, for superconducting qubits, which are also fast, but without the scalability advantage of silicon, and allows us to perform 1 million error-corrected computations per minute, which is really the sort of rate that you need in order to really tackle those problems I was talking about in the pharma industry, financial analysis, and so on, in a way that's commercially relevant. Mentioned before that the definition that DARPA put out for utility scale was that the commercial benefit had to outstrip the cost, and in part because of the compact nature of silicon qubits, it really allows our Dzurak systems to be very cost effective. There are two main ways in which why this is true. The first one is that we can use the same manufacturing plants to make our quantum processor chips that are used to make standard integrated circuits. So I'm holding here a 300 millimeter wafer. That's the wafer size that's used in the semiconductor industry to make most of the chips in your phone or laptops. And this is a wafer that was made for us at IMEC, the world's largest R&D semiconductor foundry, where all of the next generation chip developments for the major chip manufacturers is done. Just in the past months, and soon to be published in Nature, in fact the next week or so, we'll be reporting really amazing results on qubits that are made on wafers just like this. And so because we can use standard manufacturing, we don't have to develop new technologies. We require no specialised tooling in the semiconductor manufacturing lines in order to make these chips. So very cost effective from the production perspective. But even more important is the fact that for most quantum computing systems with other technologies outside silicon integrated circuits, because of the physical size of the systems and the fact that many of them need to be networked together, it leads to very, very large units, either requiring very large amounts of cryogenics, which is very expensive both in terms of capital costs, but also in the energy costs required to operate them, or in the case of other systems that require a large amount of laser and photonics support that again can be very large, very bulky, and very expensive. Silicon, because of the fact that we're able to get everything in one compact unit, means that we can get both capital costs and energy costs down at a very small fraction of competing technologies. Just to visualise this, this is the system that we're designing for our full utility scale system at many millions of qubits. This is due for release in the first half of the 2030s. We have a similar system in similar footprint that will be delivered in the first half of 2029 that will already be at many thousands of qubits and which we're targeting at clear quantum advantage over existing high-performance classical computing. Just to step through this, on the right you see a unit which is, as you can see, similar to the size of a standard rack in a data centre, and that is the entire refrigeration unit that we require to go to of order 100 million qubits and potentially even up to of order 1 billion qubits. So if you have seen some of the visualizations of the systems that are being developed, either for superconducting systems, certainly photonic systems, or trapped ions or neutral atoms, those systems are very, very large in comparison, and large and requiring significantly more power. In our case, the entire quantum processing unit is in that single rack-sized unit on the right. The other racks on the left are classical processing chips, full of classical processing chips to do the quantum error correction. And typically the amount of quantum error correction required for of order tens of millions of qubits is pretty much largely the same no matter what implementation you use. So in fact, we've got more classical footprint in terms processing in terms of footprint than we actually do quantum processing. So incredibly compact, and not only does this mean that we can keep the energy costs for the operation down and the capital costs down to a fraction of competitors, it also means that this is something that can be located in standard data centres. And at the moment we're talking to data centre providers in Australia, in the US, in Japan, about putting our early stage systems into operating data centres very, very soon in order to both benchmark the performance of our systems and just show that there are no impediments to having this in standard data centres. Ultimately, as some of you may be aware, pretty much all of the valuable commercial applications are not going to be done just with the quantum computer. They're going to be done with a quantum computer integrated with a lot of high-performance classical compute, either AI or other forms of high-performance computing. Because most commercially relevant algorithms require a lot of processing that is not efficient on a quantum computer, and you just use the quantum computer to target those subroutines where you really need the quantum processing. So putting these things in a data centre tightly integrated with classical compute we see is very important for the future. So looking forward, the vision that we have at Dzurak is not to have a quantum computer or a few quantum computers around the world. We're looking at thousands of these systems integrated into standard data centres, quantum enhanced data centres, with very, very energy efficient performance and at a cost point that makes it accessible to as many end users as possible right across those industry verticals, from pharma to the chemical industry to finance. So if anyone would like to know more, you can contact us at these points. My email is very easy, andrew@dzurak.com, and I and our team are around for the next few days. And I've just been, and we are hiring, yes, we are indeed, here in the US at the moment. So thank you very much.